Hello, TNA fam. We're here again at the episode podcast to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans, and of course, today we are talking No Surrender. It's upcoming in about a week, a little bit over a week, and finally they've announced some matches for the friggin' show. Oh my god, it took you bloody long enough to announce some matches for this show. Like, even one or two matches you could have announced like way before this, and there's still a couple of matches that you should have announced here and now, or as quickly as possible, because again, or you should have said, okay, well, they're not happening this at this point, they're gonna happen in a few more weeks. Okay, at least then we know what's going on, you know. But anyway, I don't know where to start, actually, but, like, I think the one that I'm going to start with is perhaps, unfortunately, the least interesting, just in my opinion, just, like, in terms of a lot of things, is Stacks versus Trey Miguel. I said before, like, I felt like this is cool for Trey. It's cool to see him get a boost up into the more upper main event, upper mid card, whatever else sort of space. But, like, I don't think Stacks has held this title very long, honestly. And, like, despite me feeling like Trey could be a good international champion, I just don't think there's enough story behind it. Maybe you could argue that there is. He's had that big return. He's had that big win of that title shot. Now he gets his chance against Stacks, but there isn't anything else on the line, so to speak, you know, for Trey. And like I said before, like, when he comes back, you need like a really in-depth emotional interview with him. You need to see, like, what does this mean for him, or what, you know, like, that sort of stuff. You need to see, like, right, what is this all about? Like, maybe that'll come next week or whatever else it is, but again, this is why I say you should have announced this, like, weeks ago or whatever else it was, you know, again, so that people could be like, okay, this is where we're going. Right, cool, great. Now let's move along. Let's know where this story's going. Let's hear about where this story's going. You know, what does this mean for Trey? You know, whatever. Because even if he's going to lose, which unfortunately I think is the case, it's like, at least then you get to see, like, maybe a little bit of something more from Trey. And maybe, like, even he might be elevated to the world title division or the main event scene. You know, so you never know. But yeah, I don't know. One match, or one thing that I do want to say before I talk about anything else, this was one of the matches, at least, that I was talking about, that they probably should have announced, or at least said, hey, it's not going to happen now, it's going to happen later, is something between Elijah and Mustafa Ali. So, I don't know what's going on there. They had a great main event. Jada Stone, absolutely amazing in that match as well. A couple of small little things did happen in that match, but I'm not going to nitpick too much. It's like one of those things that can happen. It was like, and she's like, basically that was the match main event as well, I think, wasn't it? Or was the Elegance? I think the Elegance brand was after that, wasn't it? No, so yeah, that's right. That was after that. It was semi-main event, I think. But that was great. Like, they had an amazing. She had an amazing showing in that. So I want to give her a shout out, just because she did such an amazing job in that match. Speaking of Ali, which is the main reason I talked about this, is this match that's at No Surrender. So now it's clear, like, why you're not having something between Elijah and Ali at this show, which I don't think makes a whole lot of sense in some ways, to an extent, because like this feud is still going on, and yes, like, maybe you need to, I don't know, like, you wanted it a bigger event, I don't know, like, it should just be over, or, like, get it over and done with as quickly as possible. Maybe to an extent that, or saying, oh, it's gonna be at sacrifice, then when Ali wins, then he gets a title shot, or something like that. Whatever. You're building that thing up between him and Santana again, maybe. Like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, this, like, at least, like, we know what he's doing. We don't know what Elijah's doing. So we'll have to wait and see what he is doing, because it's a bit weird. But the Hardys and the Righteous are going to team up, which is crazy to me in many ways, versus Order 4. So this is going to be interesting in some ways. I feel like the Righteous should and probably will, like, dominate this match in some ways, of at least, I hope, at least in ring action, between them and Order 4. But then again, you say to yourself, well, what does that make any sense? Because it's like they're heels or whatever else, and the idea would be, what you want is for the Hardys to finally have to tag in, the Righteous to help them, in a situation. They've been tagging each other in the whole match, but finally they have to. They've got no other choice, whatever. They've got to tag in the Righteous, that sort of thing. So, at least, like, if the Hardys are in there, at least, like, they'll be just, like, hopefully at least selling, or only doing, like, a handful of spots, because that's all they can really do in these matches anymore, is sell and do their, like, 5 moves of doom or whatever. So they can't really do anything else. So, but I feel like, again, like, you start saying, well, I think, again, you're trying to maybe protect Order 4, at least protect Ali, but then again, you might be like, well, what if Elijah comes down or gets involved or whatever else? You can continue that feud in that way, rather than just being like, oh, we, like, whatever, like, now it's like, here we go again, or whatever it is, and now it's gonna, culminate finally, or whatever else it is, somehow, some way. I don't know what, like I said before, maybe steel cage, but those are the only things that I would think of, like, a proper, like, cell or a proper, like, cage would work, because, like, you've got to keep the rest of Order 4 out. So that, or they've got to be banned from ringside or something like that. I don't know. Or in shark cages, away from the ring, way away from the ring, or whatever, or locked in the locker room or something like that, or whatever. I don't know. What could you think? You could think, like, they're, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's interesting to think, like, what you could do with that. But yeah, that's where I start seeing that going. So I feel like maybe you could have that with Ali and Elijah, where Elijah costs, Ali the win, and then you're back to this thing again, where it's like, now it's do or die, or whatever. This is going to be the last dance, or the last walk, or whatever it is, match, or something like that. I don't know, something like that. So at least, like, you've got something to do with them. But yeah, like, somewhat interesting dynamic. I'm more interested in, like, again, I'm not really interested in seeing, like, this overly complex story somewhat in some ways, but it is so interesting and complicated that it's got you hooked. It's, like, crazy, because it's like, oh my god, just make it more, like, somewhat make it more simple, like, in some ways, like, just say we want the belts, what, like, that's, like, it, we want the belts, we don't care who has them, you shouldn't care who has the belts. But this is so nuanced, it's, like, crazy to be like, oh man, we don't want to fight you, no, or whatever. Like, what? No, you either want the belts or you don't want the belts. You shouldn't care who has the belts. But on the other hand, it's like, finally they're actually telling, like, a nuanced story, rather than, like, it's so straightforward of, we want the belts, so we're gonna beat ya, type thing. So at least there is something like that, but it is a little bit like, I don't know. All right, there's two matches on here that I'm not really enthralled to talk about. I don't know what I think I'm going to talk about the Knockouts title match because it's actually a title match and there's actually something on the line, and I'll talk more about that in a minute or in a moment or what have you. Guys, what are they doing with laying Lee and Ariana Grace in this match? Is Ariana Grace turning heel? That's the only thing that I can think of that's happening in this match. That's the only little thing that I can keep thinking of. Is she actually turning heel? And does it matter? I don't know whether it matters because Lei is very, very, like, besides the fact that she's, like, not been booked very well, like, most of the time, she actually is a very good wrestler and whatnot. But she's not a great character, or she hasn't been framed as a great character. You know, she's just been framed as this tag team person, you know, and that's about it. She hasn't been framed at, like, she's had one-on-one matches, but she hasn't been framed as being this singles star, this singles person who kicks butt. You know, like, she does kick butt, but it's like, it's always like, oh, well, after you've finished kicking butt, you're going back to basically the mid-card and just doing that stuff. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you know, you haven't presented her, and she, like, I don't know whether she actually has the it factor that I'm looking for personally or whatever, or even the company's looking for professionally or whatever. She's a very good professional, but I just don't think she has that it factor that it requires to really be the woman, the face of this brand. So I don't know that Dani Luna really has that, but she was almost on the cusp of having it. So I feel really bad for her because she was almost there, and I feel like she could have had it. And I do hope that she does get that title match soon. And maybe, like you say, oh, it's a stopgap or whatever. Maybe, but this might be where they're going, guys. Like, I said this before. It's like, is it gonna matter if Ariana turns heel? Because if she turns heel, which I'm starting to feel like, oh, well, that's obviously what you're gonna do, to an extent, or whatever. Because this was the plan all along, and I'm not watching NXT. So I haven't really seen much of, like, what's the story's been happening in NXT variant of this. So, like, I think, like, in NXT you would have been able to tell already, hey, she's turning heel in TNA, because she was already doing all this stuff with Stacks and whatnot. So it was like, oh, it's inevitable she's turning heel or whatever. I don't know what she's doing now because I'm not paying that much attention, or I just haven't seen it or whatever. So I don't know. Like, I just don't see what you, like, if you say, okay, like, she turns heel. Okay, let's say that, because that's like what, like, I haven't considered that she could remain face, but like, I don't see it. I don't see the point in saying she, you know, she did the right thing or whatever else. Now she gets, you know, some respect or something like that or whatever else it is. All that stuff. Because again, I don't know. The only interesting thing to have in a match like this is when you have that, not fear, but you have that sense of, okay, this person's turning heel, or whatever. You know, this person's going to work heel. Because, like, or is she? Like, that continues to be my thing. Like, I just don't know. This, like, in some ways, you've almost crafted it in a good way of saying, hey, but then again, like I said before, it's like, you went too fast. You went from, I'm a heel, I'm the biggest asshole, to being like, oh, sorry, too quickly. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm like, it doesn't make any sense for you to be this big ass heel and then suddenly a week later or whatever it is, come back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, what? That doesn't make any sense. And again, this is why she's done this. This is a manipulation tactic that she's used on her father to get this match so that she can try to win this title. Again, oh my God. I don't know. I really don't. As far as a character, if you do that, I think that you've got something gold. The only problem that I continue to have is that it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter. Because, maybe, yes, Ariana or whatever, she's one of the very few people that they seem to be still we don't care about her. She's there, or she's here, or whatever else it is. We don't really care. Yeah, whatever. You can have her. See ya, bye. Even if, somebody is somewhat successful, I do find that, they're, WWE is, shooting themselves in the foot and being like, yeah, but we don't see it, or we don't believe it, or we don't care, or whatever, and we just want to run out the clock, or whatever. And this is something, again, that I continue to stumble into every single time. I really don't think that AEW or WWE actually care about, doing anything anymore. I think that they're so happy with the way things are that they just do not care. The only time that they are actually, have to be okay, well, I bet we better pull our finger out and do something, is when the fans are basically rioting and telling them off for what they're doing, which is, again, why they keep telling the fans, hey, don't tell us what to do, or whatever else it is, and all this other stuff. Because, again, the fans know what they actually want. And they sometimes, when they finally demand it, they go, well, all right, we have to give in, because otherwise we're not going to sell tickets, or we're not going to make money, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So, again, that's where I feel like they're at. They're at the, we can just coast, we can just keep going with whatever we're doing, and it doesn't matter, yeah, sure, whatever. And I think that they're very much yeah, sure, yeah, whatever, yeah. They only see, when they see somebody that's successful or whatever, I get that you would be interested in them, but again, they're only interested in somebody if they're successful, way, way, way successful, right now, I think, and if the fans are effectively just demanding this person or that person or whatever else it is. Because then they know, all right, we can actually make some big money with them, or whatever else it is. Which is, I understand that's fine in some regards, but it's they don't care about anything else or anyone else. They don't care about making things work. They don't really care about putting in the effort every single week, every single month, every single thing. And yes, again, I can say the same thing here for TNA, and upcoming I'll probably be saying something similar. But, again, if you're just yeah, we have stuff, it happens, or people get over here, but it doesn't matter because we don't care. We only care if we absolutely have to pull the trigger on something, or have to pull the trigger on something else, like AJ retiring or Cena retiring or whatever else it is. We had to pull the trigger on that. Okay, cool. So now we have to, do that, and now we have to, be okay, cool. Now we have to kind of replace them, but we'll replace them as slowly as possible in some ways, because really they weren't really a big fixture anyway. Wasn't Dragon Lee and AJ the tag champs still? Or did they lose them at some point? I don't know. I don't even know what the freak happened there. But anyway, again, like, so you're talking about, like, saying, hey, we really, like, even Cena, like, I could understand, like, to some extent, oh, yeah, AJ, whatever, we don't really care, or whatever. You know, which is fucking bullshit, but, like, for you to not really care about John Cena, who's been your guy for like 20 plus years or whatever it's been, is ridiculous to me. Like they did that out of like necessity in some ways, and they screwed that up as well. Like, you know, so, and maybe that was like some like expectations here or what there of The Rock turning up or whatever it was and all that sort of stuff. But again, like, as well, like, you didn't do it any favors. You didn't say, okay, you know, let's make this the best thing that it can be. No, you just said, oh well, we don't care. We're just phoning it in again. You know, whatever. It is going to be what it is going to be. You know, or whatever. That, or we should have just stayed with him being a babyface or something, or maybe we should have really committed to the heel run. Like, I think it was like too many mixed messages or whatever it was. Like, that's what I mean. It's like it's his last year. We all love Cena. Now he's a heel. What? Now he's a babyface with no real explanation. You know. Oh, okay. So we're meant to forget all that, you know, type thing. But either way, again, it like I said before, what would it do? What would it accomplish if you have... I don't see her being a babyface. I just can't see her being a really good babyface. I just see her being a heel. That's the only thing that I can see. Because, like, again, you switch tracks from her being a heel back to being a babyface so goddamn quickly that it just feels like this was the plan all along, to lure Santino into a false sense of security or whatever it was, and then bam, you know, I turn heel in this match or whatever it is and try to win the title. But that's where I'm like, okay, are you actually going to win it? Because, like, everything that I have said about Lay, it's like, I don't think she's the one. I don't see where this is going because you've not positioned her right. You haven't done anything with her. Like, I'm just over it. I want somebody else to be the champion, honestly, too. That's why I was like, put this belt on Danny. Put the belt on Danny. Let's do something different. You know, now you've got, like, 3 or 4 other heels. You don't really have that many other great baby faces. Like, so it's a tough position to be in some ways, but, like, I feel like if, like, this is where you could fix it. Like I said, when Ash feels like she's coming back, maybe Tessa feels like she's coming back into the picture, which I said you might want to avoid doing. And, like, how many weeks are we in now? I don't even know. It's 3 or 4 weeks into the AMC. I said you might want to leave her out for like a month or 2 or even 6 months. Like, maybe she can be a manager or whatever else it is. No, here she is. She has a match. Actually, the crowd wasn't, like, chanting she's a racist or anything like that very much either. So I don't know what's going on there. But that's good in some ways. You know, they were just booing because she had the heat or whatever. In some ways, at least they weren't chanting she's a racist or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like, is it like I said, you haven't got very many big time baby faces. You need more big time baby faces. You've got Ash, you've got Tessa, you've got you know, you've got Danny, you've got Enya, you've got all these people that are big time heels. Maybe you could, I said this before, maybe you could bring Danny back as a babyface, but, like, she's got to be an ass-kicking babyface. She can't just be pure white meat babyface who shakes people's hands and smiles and all this other stuff or whatever. That was passe, like, 30-odd years ago, man. She's got to be, like, this badass killer, you know, like, And that's what, like, Lei should be in some ways. Like, she is sometimes, but, like, then she's just back to being a tag team person. And back to being the charisma vacuum that she is, unfortunately. She isn't, like, good enough to be, like, the top person. She's good enough to be a mid-card person, absolutely. But not good enough to be the top person, I don't think. I just don't see Ariana, like, her character work has been really good, but she's not that amazing in the ring. But then again, like, maybe she doesn't need to be, but I just can't see her going up against all these, like, nobodies, like, that are there. It's just, you don't have enough baby faces. And again, the build that you've built, maybe there's been a little bit more build there, but realistically, the build starts when you've announced something or when you've started the story of something. So it started this week. So again, with 2 weeks build, I don't believe. And again, she hasn't won, like, I can't even remember how many matches she has, but she hasn't wrestled in TNA in forever. And, like, yes, you could have her win underhandedly, obviously, so you don't 100% need belief in her. But, like, if this is where the story's going and she's gonna win, then obviously I'm gonna be shocked because, like, again, you haven't done anything to build her up and make her feel like, oh wow, she's gonna win. Like, I don't know. So it's so far out of left field. I want to say something about Santana and the situation with Macklin, because, like, I haven't really touched much on the whole situation with Macklin getting the fired briefcase. I think I mentioned it a bit, and I was like, oh man, that fucking sucks. I really hope Macklin, you know, can find somewhere to work and to do stuff, all that stuff. Because I like Macklin. He's talented, and I think that he deserves, you know, to be, you know, same with everyone. Like, that's why I'm not criticizing people when they're going to AEW or WWE. I'm just saying, well, why the fudge are you going there? Because their rosters are absolutely stacked, and it seems like they don't give a shit about who they've got and what they've got and how they've got it. They're just sitting on talent because they're going, oh, well, we ain't letting any talent go. They'll go to AEW, or they'll go to WWE, or they'll go to TNA, and then they'll actually break out. Oh, shit, we can't have that. We can't have talent doing things. But yeah, like, it really felt like this was a shit moment, and, like, for Macklin, and it was like, oh, okay, you know, we've lost another one. You know, that's like, it starts being like, oh man, like, at least we have a handful of people, and you're trying to replace some of these people with, like, guys like Bear Bronson and some of these other guys or whatever. And maybe you're hiring some new guys or whatever else it is. Okay, or you're bringing some guys in to do some stuff. Okay, cool. Let's hope that can stabilize the division. He came out and attacked Santana this week. Like, so now I'm like, okay, is this seems like a storyline? So now where's it going? You know what I mean? So you start asking yourself that question. You know, is he gonna be fired? Is Santana gonna say, well, I want a piece of you? You know? Or whatever. Maybe he should even say, hey, at some point, I kind of understand, Macklin. I kind of understand. You've had everything ripped away from you. You know? Like I did. When this title was ripped away from me. You know? And say, hey, I understand. But you shouldn't have attacked me from behind. You know? If you wanted a piece of me, you wanted one last shot, you know? We'll do it. You and me. Face to face. Man to man. In the ring. You know? Maybe that's where you can be like, Macklin was so close or whatever else it was. Because again, like, Santana's already beaten him or whatever else it is. And basically beaten the whole roster at this point. But yeah, again, like he came so close, but then the oh my god comes on, or the system music comes on, whatever it is. You have one of those guys try to cash in, or you can have them both try to cash in. That'd be interesting, rather than just being like at least then you're using like the fact that both of them have a call your shot. Or maybe you can be like, one of them cashes in or tries to cash in, but then the other one tries to cash in, like type thing. So Macklin has to Santana has to run the gauntlet, sort of thing. So I don't know, but yeah, like that seems interesting. That seems more interesting and more like, oh, let's do this. Let's try to get it there or whatever. And again, like I know that like some people will be really pissed that Santana doesn't have the title or it gets taken off of him in like only a month again or whatever else it is, or maybe a couple of months or whatever it is. But that's the point in some ways of these things. Get you to be like, oh man, they need to put the belt back on Santana, let's get the belt back on Santana. Let's invest to get Santana the belt back, Let's buy tickets, let's buy shirts, let's buy things so that Santana will get the title back. That's the idea of these things. Another thing that I want to bring up with this match, or this upcoming match, is that they hinted at Leon Slater using Option C, or the potential to use Option C, which is basically another way to say, hey, I get a title shot anytime. Now, another reason that I think that they said that was because they perhaps know, hey, Leon's not going to be here for much longer, or whatever else it is. He's WWE bound. Maybe that's a way that we can, take the belt off of him and give him a big, main event spot or whatever else it is, but he loses on the way out or whatever else it is. And then he's off into the sunset or whatever. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah. Either way, anyway, so the upcoming match is Mike Santana and Leon Slater versus Nick Nemeth and Eddie Edwards in a tag team match. So, like, I said, so I was thinking, why the fuck don't you have a match here for a title, like a title defense? You know what I mean? Because without a, proper main event title defense, world title defense, these B shows are even worse off. They're even worse off now because, again, you've waited till the last 2 weeks beforehand to actually say, oh, we're going to announce some of the matches that are going to be on. Okay, fuck's sake, you should have announced some of these matches, at least a couple of these matches, way before, way before, so that you could be like, okay, this is where we're going, this is what fans can expect, this is what they're paying their hard-earned money to see. Not just, oh, it's a taping, and you'll see some stuff. Because at least then people are expecting, oh, well, you're going to build to the pay-per-view, or you're going to build to the monthly special pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, because there's still pay-per-views on Triller TV or Fight TV, as it used to be known. But yeah, I realized it, I was a bit mad, honestly, about it, but then I realized, well, you've got effectively three people in this match that can be call their shot at any time to say, hey, give me a title match. So this match could end in... It doesn't matter how this match ends or how this match goes or who wins or who loses or whatever. I don't see Leon cashing in because... again, he's a babyface. Maybe you could... I don't really see him turning heel. But maybe you could try to turn him heel. I think it would be really, really hard. But... maybe you could try, but I just don't think that it would work. I think that there are some times that I feel like you can take a gamble on something and say, okay, we'll take the gamble on this and see if it works. But there are other times that I feel like, nah, might as well not take that gamble or take that risk and say, hey, let's see how this works out. Just as equally, I feel like there aren't times or there aren't perhaps people that you should take that gamble on, because it is very much like, well, why would we do that? Like, I feel like you've got enough heels, you know, on that roster that, yeah, but there's just so many. It's like the opportunity. I understand the opportunity is something that people would like do anything for, and that's why it's like, you know, so many people, you know, like, I think like they said this in WWE more, so I think Punk said it, but having the title poisons you in some ways. Like, it poisons you. It gets in your head and whatnot of having that title after a while and whatnot. But also not having that title can also poison you, I think. You know, because it is the biggest prize and it is the thing that people, you know, have, you know, either dreamt about or worked for their whole career, sort of thing, you know. So again, you're sort of saying, well, why wouldn't somebody, you know, betray their friends or do anything, because this is the thing that you should do anything to try to get. I don't know. It's so hard because, again, like, never say never in professional wrestling, but it's just something that I don't think is necessary, really. I don't really see it as necessary. And, like, I have a video coming up now soon that's, like, analyzing what things are needed. Like, sometimes it's necessary to say, okay, this person won't feel like a babyface, so they need to be a heel. So we need to engineer them to be hated, because, like, yeah, maybe they have some things that they could be enthralled as a babyface to an extent, but, like, really people want to see them or will pay to see them as a heel because they're a much better heel than they are a babyface. So again, this is what we have to do. We have to draw people into seeing what we're producing every week, every month. And yes, like, again, like, if people know the stories, which a lot of the hardcore fans do, they will tune in. That's true. But that's not everybody. And again, your casual audience, maybe, yes, like, you get a big lot of people coming in the last few days or in the last few weeks of saying, oh yeah, I'll check that out, or check out what TNA is doing this month, or whatever it is. But really, they don't. They really don't. Honestly, they just don't. People do not check things out like that. I do not check things out. If I happen to see something on Twitter from WWE, then I happen to see it. If I happen to catch some highlights, or if there's something that actually engages me, then I might catch some of the highlights, or I might try to catch some of the highlights. But that's it. Like, I caught the highlights for AJ. I wanted to see the full thing, but I just haven't been able to find, like, the full match, and I haven't really dug into trying to find it either. But again, like, would I really? Like, even with my level of, like, thing, it's like, well, why do I need to see that? What's it for? Because, like, even if, like I said before, it's like he is retired, it's like, well, not to me, he's not, you know. You know, in some ways, but in some ways I understand. If he is retired, then that is for him, you know. And hopefully we can move on without it. But, like, everyone would have loved to see AJ do something in TNA, and I still think they would do. But, like, is it gonna happen? Who knows? Whatever. If it happens, it happens at a certain point. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like, that's it. You can't make things happen sometimes. You can beg and you can plead and you can say, hey, do it. But is it gonna work out? Who knows?
But yeah. So, like, with this main event, like I said, it literally does not matter who wins this tag team match, because it's like, who cares anyway? I feel like you could almost tease something though. That's what I could almost see. You could have Nemeth and Edwards try to cash in. So I think the story is almost about Leon. Maybe Santana doesn't trust Leon in some ways because he's been backstabbed by just about everyone else. But Leon's like, man, you can trust me. I'm your boy, you know. And it's crazy. This is going to be his return match as well to TNA since the visa issues, at least hopefully. Fuck you, visa issues. Thank you very much. Get the fuck out of the way. But yeah, like, again. So that's the story here. The story is, can Santana trust Leon? And then at the end, you're like, after everyone's tried to cash in, you've got that little shot of Leon with the title and holding it up and looking at Santana and that sort of thing, and being like, you know, stroking his imaginary beard sort of look of going, I could cash in, couldn't I? You know, type thing. You know, I could do that. Maybe I will at some point. Who knows? You know, type thing. That could be it. But yeah, I've like, in that regard then, do you think, like, if you think, like, how is that laid out? Yeah. You're thinking, like, what would constitute the heels, like, because they want, if they've like beaten down Santana, or even like got a chair to Santana or something and beaten him up and put him down and whatever else it is, like, then they can try to cash in. So it's only going to be after Santana either wins in some ways or whatever, or Santana loses in some way. I think, like, it would make more sense if Santana wins, then the heels storm the ring and then beat him up, and then both of them try to cash in, but then Leon makes the big save or whatever, you know, because, like, you know, Santana's been, like, not ignoring him, but basically saying, nah, man, I don't trust you, man. I don't trust you, or whatever, all this. And he's like, I'm your boy! You know, and all this, you know, or whatever. And then you've got that at the end where Santana does somehow do it or whatever else it is, but the heels are mad because, like, somehow, some way he pulled it out. That's the only way that it makes sense, in my opinion. But then they have to both try to cash in. Then Leon's finally there to, you know, after, you know, they've taken him out or whatever else it was, he's finally come back and he's finally, you know, scares them off or whatever else it is, shoves them off or whatever. Like, I was thinking it would be on the ramp, but I was thinking maybe it should be in the ring where Leon's like, maybe I should cash this in type thing, or I could cash this in. This could be my opportunity. I don't know, but that's what makes this interesting. It's not interesting in the sense, like, I've worked it out, like, that's probably the layout, but you basically know nothing's going to happen. The title's not going to change this month or whatever it is, because you're setting things up for later. You're setting them up for down the road. And I feel like, again, you've got to get these things out of the way as quickly as possible. Like, you've got the thing with Trey out of the way, like, really, really quickly, which I feel like is, like, a little bit, because, again, you should have been, like, if he's even a real contender, you should have been like, he gets a really big win on pay-per-view, and then it's like, okay, here comes Trey. He's going to make a big promo and going to say, hey, this is what this means to me. And maybe that's what you're going to do after this or whatever. Again, maybe you'd be saying, like, I don't know. Like, maybe then you do get Leon, like, vacate the X Division title at some point. And then Trey wins it. And then he's like, I have, in my hands an opportunity to call for option C. And the reason that I want to do that is because da-da-da-da, fill in blank here. Santana, I want to face you. At this show or that show, whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. Right. Go from there. And that doesn't have to happen for like 2 or 3 months or whatever it is. But again, like, that's something you could do. Be like, oh, well, feels like Leon's on the way out or whatever else it is. Or what we want to do with Leon now is be like, okay, let's start making you like the guy that starts putting everybody else over, despite anything else or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, like, that's where I'm at with it. Right now, I feel like 100% they're adding stuff for next week and whatnot. So we'll have to wait and see. Another match that, like, I've said stuff about, like, there the other day, was like this feud between Rich Swann and AJ Francis. So what's happening with that? That's got to be finished up. Like, again, like, is Macklin gonna keep being here, or is he gonna keep turning up, or whatever else it is, all this stuff? Now it feels like a storyline. Now it feels like you've started something. I can't see, I don't know, I can't see him being the one to beat Santana. I don't know. And then you start asking yourself the question of saying, okay, well, if somebody beats Santana, like, where are you going with that? Because the natural thought, or the natural thing to say is, okay, well, who's our next biggest babyface? Or whatever. But that's where you've got to be like, okay, let's try to push Trey, or let's try to push these other people, or let's try to get these other people the rub, so to speak, to build them up. Another thing that's sort of on the radar somewhat now is something between BDE and Eric Young. So I said before, it doesn't make any sense for, like, in some ways, Eric to have that in some ways, because it's like, oh, he could have got an X Division title shot just by saying, hey, I want an X Division title shot. Or whatever. Or even just, like, confronting Leon or whatever. And that sort of thing. And then you get the title shot. But yeah, again, to help BDE or whatever, maybe, like, I don't know. But then again, it's like, well, that does feel a bit quick too. And it does feel like, then it starts to feel like, you do have a couple of people that could be in that X Division, or could be, like, doing something there, or could, be more. So it's like, but maybe you're kind of telling this story now of, like, everyone, like, again, anyone will do anything to get the world title. Even turn their back on Santana, even though they've been friends or whatever else it is. Like, I don't know. But then it's like, you need other baby faces. You can't just have all these heels. So, but again,
maybe that's the same. Like, I know people like Trey, but it's like maybe that's what you should do with Trey. I don't know. Because again, it starts to feel like, oh, well, you know, he ain't going to win it, probably. Or he doesn't feel like a guy that would win it yet, at least. Because again, you haven't put the time in to be like, okay, let's build this guy up, da da da, properly or whatever. So it's like, oh, okay, well, let's figure out what we can do with you. Let's turn you heel, maybe. I don't know about that because again, it's like he's just come back and people are happy to see him. So yeah, definitely keep it away for like 5-6 months or whatever it is. But again, like, not a horrible idea. But again, it's just like you can't have the whole roster be heels. Like, you've got to have some baby faces or whatever. Or like, if you're gonna turn some of these guys heel or somewhat do some stuff with them, it's like, okay, well, who's the next big baby face? Especially if you've turned a bunch of your other people heel, like, or somewhat turned them heel or try to. It's like, oh, okay. I don't know. You can still give them opportunities and not turn them heel, but it would work. It would work in so many ways so much better if they turned heel, because it's like, then you're getting this like sense of how important it is to try to get that title and whatnot. Like, guys like Kazarian and those sorts of guys, like, again, even like the other main event guys that you kind of got there, I just don't think, like Eddie and Nick and maybe EY and guys like that, despite how like good they are, whatever, it's like guys like that should not be the next champion. They could be in the title picture. Mustafa Ali's the most on the border, I would say. But I still feel like he's not the one that you should go with. I think you should put a lot of more effort into Francis, put a lot more effort into, other guys like that, and start saying, okay, I don't know what happened with the whole NXT invasion guys. But yeah, that seems to be like gone now properly, because they're not being featured on TV. Maybe they'll be back, who knows? Because NXT obviously doesn't have, or WWE in general doesn't have shit for them to do, except for like 2-minute jobs or whatever else the fuck it is on whatever shows. Yeah, but they're obviously, again, they're not going to let basically anyone out of contract or whatever else it is if they can avoid it, because they're like, oh no, you might go to AEW. But then again, they might be like, oh, whatever, who cares? Some guy that we were never doing anything with anyway, or didn't see any potential with anyway. But like, it's so crazy that like the turnaround that some people have had, that I think that they're afraid of being like, oh, what if he turns it around somehow or whatever, So that's where I think that they're at. They're kind of like, everyone's just hoarding people to be like, we can't let anyone go, because what if they go to WWE, even if they're a nobody that's doing nothing, or TNA or wherever, what if they go somewhere, what if they do something, we've got to have them so that they can't do anything, so they can't compete against us, So again, that feels like somewhat the vibe of just like, we're going to coast as much as possible. We don't really care. We're just putting in the minimal effort, and stroke by stroke, while we increase the prices and whatever, all this other stuff to just make more profits and all that other stuff. We don't really care. The rest, yeah, we don't care. So, but yeah, like, otherwise, like, it's like starts becoming like, we've got to, like, that's why we've got to do with what we've got to do. And again, why we can't rely on WWE for nothing. Because again, like, their like idea is like, if we buy TNA and we buy all the talent, then we'll have all the talent there. Like, their idea is to buy the company in some ways, I think, just to be like,
now we can control it. Now we can, we don't have to ask somebody. Now we don't have to do this or do that or whatever else it is or whatever, whatnot, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Now we can just run it. And we don't care about running it properly. We'll just run it however and not care because we just want the talent, the handful of talent or whatever else it is, maybe the library or whatever else it is. And perhaps like another developmental place for, more talent that we can just hoard away from AEW, So that's the problem. The problem is these guys, they don't know what they're doing. And again, it's the talent. I don't know why talent continue to be like, yeah, I'll take my chances going to AEW or WWE when it's like, you can see that they just do nothing. They have all these talent and they don't do anything with them. And if you're a guy that's like, oh, well, it's another payday, so I don't really care if they do anything with me. Or if you're a guy like, oh, well, I'm the one that'll change that or whatever else it is. No, you won't, because they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about doing anything with anyone or whatever. They're just interested in, ticking the boxes every single week, every single month, as long as they've got shows, as long as they've got the fans in the arena and whatnot and whatever. They're doing their job. That's all they're just coasting by doing whatever they're doing. They're not going out of their way to be innovative or to be different or to do anything. They don't really care anymore. Like, they're just happy where they're at, and that's it. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing, and that's it. So, that's where you've got to be different. You've got to be like, we're going to do everything in our power, even if these guys decide to go to WWE or AEW, which, why should they? Because, again, there's no fucking opportunities there, but if they're stupid enough to go there, again, good luck to them, because again, we know, and everyone should know that they don't do shit. But anyway, obviously TNA has had a lot of chances with a lot of people as well, and they have a lot of other people where it's like, what are you doing with this person? Why have you even hired this person if you're not going to do anything with them or whatnot? But then again, it's like, well, you can only fit so many hours of TV or whatever else it is. But again, like, man, it feels bad when you're like, oh, we have all these plans for all these people. But, and that's why, again, maybe the show should be 2.5 hours or even 3 hours. I don't know. It depends what you can do with those 3 hours or those 2.5 hours or whatever it is to compel people to watch. Not just, say, well, we don't know what else to do, so, we'll have extra long promos, or we'll give an extra few minutes to a few of the matches or whatever. You've got to have compelling stuff. Not everything has to be compelling. Like, you can still have your squash matches, or you can still have your, lesser matches or whatever else it is. But again, you should be going, okay, why is that compelling? Where is that going? What is that about? Why did we do that? We didn't just do that because we decided it's Thursday or we have 5 minutes or whatever it is or whatever. So we're going to have this, jobber match here. It's saying, okay, well, what does that jobber match do for this person or that person or whatever else it is to get to the next level or to do the next thing or whatever it is. Or whatever for the crowd, you're not just saying, oh, we're doing this because we can, because it's Thursday, or whatever. But yeah, we're doing this because, hey, this is our plan. Okay, this is where we're going. And so we need to do this in order to get there, or whatever. So, yeah, okay. Or whatever. Yeah, so, yeah, again, you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it and when you're doing it. And how you're doing it. Not just be like, oh, we have this 5 minutes. We could do it. We could do a whole bunch of things with that 5 minutes, but hey, we're going to, or whatever it is. 7 minutes, whatever it is. But we're going to put in this jobber match. Why are we putting in this jobber match? Okay, well, what we want is X. how we get there is why. Okay, cool, great. That's why we're doing it. We're not just doing it for no real reason other than we can or whatever it is. But we do have a plan for this, or we do have a reason to do this, or whatever else it is. So beyond just, oh, we're keeping this person relevant on TV. Okay, great. You could have done that in 1,000 ways, you know. But yeah. Nah, guys, like, that's where I'm at with this card and this show thus far. As I said, there obviously will be more stuff next week. When it is, I don't know. And then, like, I think Sacrifice is in March, obviously, I believe. March 27th. So it's a month. I think it's just about a month after this. I think. No, it's a bit more than a month. Bit more than a month. Okay? So obviously they're only going to have like a 2-week build again for the show. Obviously. Because that's what they've done with this show. So obviously they can't... I mean, they could, obviously. They have done it before, but I don't... And this is their first B show on the new network. I would have gone out of my way to say, okay, now let's try to see what we can do for a B show. Like, for our first time here on AMC, instead of being like, oh, we're just, like, gonna keep doing the same thing of, like, only a couple of weeks worth of build, or whatever else it is. Or whatnot. Like, proper build. Like, matches announced and all this other stuff. Matches sell these shows. Especially, like, when people are gonna tune in on pay-per-view. Like, yeah, you might think, oh, this is a rubbish tag team match that doesn't mean anything or isn't really going anywhere or whatever, and it has no real consequence or whatever, or any other match that's like, oh yeah, whatever, sure, whatever. But this is the way to do it when you have like, oh, okay, 3 of these people can actually be like, hey, I call for a title shot right here, right now. You could basically say this is a fatal 4-way in some ways. It isn't, but like you could almost think of it like that, you know, in some ways. Like this is, and maybe you will get there where you get Santana's been like overlooking Leon or being like not overprotective or whatever, but overly like, I don't trust you, get out of my way or whatever type deal. And then Leon's like, man, I've been telling you that I got your back this whole time. And here I am, trying to help you, but you don't trust me. And maybe I can understand that to a degree, but, you know, like, you know, you've turned your back on me for the last time, so I'm out of here. I don't care, man. Or whatever. Or turns around and hits him. And then is like, screw you, man. You know, like, you should have believed in me, man. So now I'm going to do exactly what you feared I would do because you didn't freaking trust me to not do what you feared I would do. You know, like type thing. You could do that. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, it's a real big gamble. I don't know. I would rather think that you wouldn't do that. But yeah, again, like you've got so many of those elements where it's like people don't know what's going to happen. And so that does make it like almost must tune in to be like, oh shit, we got to know what happens and is, you know, or whatever. Even if you have that distinct feeling of like, well, maybe nothing's really gonna happen, but like maybe they will. Who knows? But again, like the jeopardy of this becomes from like the unknown. Like, is Nick Nemeth gonna win it? Is Eddie gonna win it? Is Leon gonna turn heel? Is he gonna cash in? Whatever, at some point, you know, you start having all these things. That's what a babyface has to go through. The babyface has to go through, you know, all these different challenges of all these different things at all at the same time. His best friend turning his back on him and this and that, all these things, you know. So that's great, but it's like, yeah. I'm almost there with it, but like I hate that you didn't just say let's make it like a proper title match or something, or let's give one of them a proper title match, give them a proper story, and we'll see if Eddie comes out afterwards or something or whatever it is, and then maybe Leon even comes out afterwards, and you can tease that turn or that cash in or whatever. So I don't know, but yeah, those are my thoughts for now. And obviously, I got to be here next week to rattle off all the other matches that they announce or whatever else it is, because they're gonna. Yeah, then we're gonna have to have the review show for this, and then we're obviously going to be having a look ahead. Is it No Surrender? No, this is No Surrender. Sacrifice. I keep getting the two confused. They're too similar named with the S's and stuff, and they're too close together. They were like halfway across the year, I wouldn't get confused. But since they're right next to each other, it always confuses me. But anyway, yeah. I know you guys know all this stuff, and you're very smart and whatnot, but I got to do it for my own personal stuff, and for the people that just don't know or just haven't really been paying attention or whatever else it is. They only look up the highlights or only look up the card or whatever else it is, or only see a highlight here or only see a graphic there or whatever else it is, and then they maybe check out a podcast here or there or whatever else it is, and try to get the story of what's going on in some sort of bite-sized form, which I actually kind of want to do at some point as well. More bite-sized, more like little clips, I guess, of things. So it makes it like more easy to digest, because some people's attention span is like bad, but sometimes it's good, because again, people like tune into these things when they're on their jog or when they're doing the dishes or doing the housework or whatever else it is. So again, that's where you catch people like listening to the full cast or whatever. But either way, I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope you will join me again in another one.